2311. A mysterious alien anomaly here in one moment and vanish the next. Two unlikely heroes depart on an epic adventure, the likes of which few have ever seen before.
You put a story in a brick-breaking game?
That's right, yo. Story, boss battles, power-ups, guns, and two handsome protagonists. Twin Breaker!
Contrary to what you just heard about those two handsome hosts or whatever, it's not us.
Nah.
Not us. Us being Logan and Eloy.
The two handsome hosts being Colin Moriarty and Chris
Reagan. I don't know his last name.
Either. I know I've heard him mention it in a couple of the episodes they've done, but
yes. Episodes. They are also podcasters, and they happen to have released a video game in which we are going to review in just a moment. But before that, we have a few business things to get out of the way. First of all, this kind of episode normally, this must be said at the top of the episode, is normally this kind of episode would be on our Patreon for the $3 tier. But because Colin and Chris, them not specifically, they had somebody else deal with the review codes, but they sent us a review code, and so we figure that this needs to be released on the main feed, and it also will provide as an incentive to those of you who haven't subscribed in the last couple of weeks since we've launched it to actually go and subscribe if this is the kind of bonus episode that you're interested in. So just getting that out of the way, but this is Vice of Life reviewing Twin Breaker, a Sacred Symbols Adventure
by Lillymo Games. I thought we should give them a shout out.
That's right.
They also part of sending us the code.
Yep.
Thank you to all involved.
And Lillymo, I think, is a one-man team as well, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know his name, forgive me. Maybe you can Google that really quick, Lillymo. But so yeah, they sent us the code gracefully. I'm just going to go through some quick info about it. As Eloy said, the developer and the publisher, Lillymo Games, Colin Moriarty wrote the script for it. This will be releasing tomorrow as of this release, the 24th of March, 2020. It's on PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, PlayStation 4, I kind of fumbled that, but PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita. It's going to be $10. It's cross-buy. So you buy it on Vita, you get it on PlayStation 4, and vice versa. You only need to buy it once, and you get it on both platforms. As the trailer said, it's a breaker. Brick
breaker.
Yeah, thank you.
Having a rough time today, eh?
That is right. It's a story-driven brick breaker. I think that's kind of what sets it aside. I mean, full transparency, Eloy and I, we're not brick breaker fucking aficionados.
This is quite possibly the first. I don't know. I guess I don't know what other games are considered brick breakers, but this might be the first one I've actually played.
There's like that one with the frog in the middle that's like turning in a circle that has like little balls coming around the outside of it in like a circle. I don't know. I played that one. I don't remember what it's called, but
I don't know. Would like the original Galaga be like a brick breaker?
I don't know. I maybe. I've only played Galaga like twice, and that was when I was like 10 years old, so I don't even remember how it plays. I know the name Galaga, and that's probably really bad to say, but considering that's like one of the tentpole games of all time. But all right, we're gonna get into it.
Didn't find anything on a quick search about Lillymo being one person, but if it is, props.
Yeah. Either way.
A lot of respect.
Lillymo Games, you've gotten your credit. So Twin Breaker, a Sacred Symbols adventure. By the way, Sacred Symbols is a PlayStation-centric podcast that Colin and Chris do every week. And so they made a game out of their podcast. A lot of this game has callbacks to episodes of the podcast. There's little Easter eggs in there for sayings. The two ships, which act as the two bouncers, the ball bouncers, are called greetings and salutations, which is how
I got a real big smile.
yeah, that's how they intro every podcast. So it's just like little stuff like that throughout the whole game. So if you really want to enjoy the game, you should go listen to those episodes, and you can get caught up on a lot of the Easter eggs. I will admit there were some that I didn't catch. Some of it was just very very dense, and I'm like, I think that's probably an Easter egg, but I'm not sure because I'm not that well versed in the.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you caught on to more than I did, because all I really caught was greetings and salutations. I didn't catch much more. But I also got into Sacred Symbol a little late in the game, so
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm missing.
Yeah, I've only been listening to it for, I think, the past 3 or 4 months. But before that, when Colin was with Kind of Funny, I was listening to P.S. I Love You. But anyways, that's a whole... We're going down the...
Yeah.
Specifically about Twin Breaker, though. It's a story-driven break-breaking game molded in the style of 80s arcade classics like Arkanoid and Breakout, but with a plot, characters, and meaning. In the early 2300s, Earth is still recovering from a decades-long world war that engulfed most of the planet, except for the isolationist United States that used its power and prestige not to fight, but to reach for the stars. But when NASA's generation ships disappear in interstellar space, only 2 pilots are capable of figuring out why. Featuring 40 stages, 4 boss fights, new game plus, multiple extra endings, plenty of story and dialogue, collectibles, a rocking soundtrack, and a fun platinum trophy, Twin Breaker is an ode to both the past and the future. The game is developed by Lillymo, which we said, who has previously made Perils of Baking and Habroxia, and written by a longtime PlayStation media personality and podcast host, Colin Moriarty. So that's their little summary of it. But,
yeah.
So I gave you some of that information. But
Yeah.
So there you go.
Sets the stage for the plot.
Yeah, which, I mean, we'll just get right into it. The story, it's hard for somebody who isn't as into science as I'm assuming Colin, because he wrote it, is. As it says, basically, here on Earth, all the other countries are fighting each other, and they're too busy with their quarrels to actually reach for the stars and stuff. And so the United States has been sending these generation ships into space. And what generation ships are, and I don't know if this has been like an idea floated around before, but it's new to me.
I hadn't heard too much about this before. I've heard like murmurs of it, but I enjoyed the generation ships quite a bit.
Yeah, it's an idea that I had never really considered, but basically the idea is that you send out these ships of families, so to speak, and you send the ship light years away, but some of those people on there just keep living their lives and on the ship.
Yeah, the way they
living
wrote
and
this
dying.
story was that I love the subtle dig at like, due to scientific impossibility, like you can't actually travel at light speed.
Yeah. And you can't cryo freeze, like that was
Yeah.
the other thing. The whole reason they had to go to generation ships was because cryo freezing wasn't working.
Yeah, they get the names from generations upon generations of people just living and dying on the ship until
Yeah.
they reach the destination.
Yeah, and so that was a cool idea, and but when the actual like verbiage and stuff came on the scene, when you go through about 5 levels, there's 40 of them. Every like 5-ish levels, you get like a little dialogue between Colin and Chris, and I guess actually now that I'm thinking about it, the dialogue is fine. The main story is fine. It's the backstory and the collectibles, which just seemed very verbose to me, and I was like, I'm just gonna stop reading these because I don't know what's going on.
Once you start getting A ranks, S ranks, whatever on the levels, you get codexes, which really give you a lot of insight into the backstory. I read the first few, and I'm working on platinuming the game right now, so I figured once I get all of them, I'd probably give it a good read through.
Yeah.
But the ones I found were pretty interesting.
some of them are interesting, the ones that I can wrap my head around, but a lot of the scientific journals, 2220 or 2298 or whatever, I'm like, I don't know what you're saying to me, so I'm just going to pretend like I did, and I'm going to play the next level. And ultimately, this game is just about, this kind of game should just be about how fun it is to play, and I think it's quite fun to play.
Oh, definitely, yeah. The whole story and how dense it is and how much you can get into the lore is just like icing on top of a pretty delicious cake, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, that is how it should be for most games, unless you're talking about like a Last of Us or a walking sim or something. But
yeah,
of course, this is Brick Breaker, and as the name suggests, that's what it's about. And so basically how it is if you don't get what I'm saying by Brick Breaker, is you have these, it's like Pong, the old Pong game, the very first 1960s, 1970s, whenever it came out, where you got the ball going back and forth, but in between there's a bunch of these bricks that you're supposed to be breaking. And the gameplay evolves every now and then to, rather than playing on the bottom of the screen, you're playing on the sides of the screen, and then you're playing with 4 different bouncers at one point. So it just kind of varies. The gameplay gets diversified in a lot of good ways, I think.
Yeah, because you'd imagine 40 levels of just like brick breaking Pong. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get stale, but then they switch it up. Like you get the 4 paddles sometimes. Other times you'll just switch back to 2. So they just kind of throw you all over the place, and it's just a good time. There's a lot of fun power-ups in the game. A lot that are really frustrating. Some of them that you just have a blast with. I'm
glad you brought this up, because the power-ups are either famine or feast, man. Like, I feel like there's times where I had to keep replaying a specific level because I was getting no power-ups, and it was just so frustrating to watch the ball go beep, beep, beep on the outside of the ring, but not hit the like 2 blocks I had left.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's just because I need to work on my geometry or whatever, and where the ball's going to hit on the bounce.
So I put one of the notes of my notes, hard as hell, or do I just suck?
Yeah, I don't know. And I feel like it has to do with the power-ups. Like I feel like the power-ups need a little bit of a tweak as to how they are spawned. I'm not sure exactly how they are. I think it's probably pretty random. But I mean, you get the heavy ball and it's just like, all right, well, this level's over.
Yeah.
Like this heavy ball is just crashing through all of these bricks. All these bricks, by the way, they have like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on them, and that's how many times you have to hit it before it actually breaks. But what the heavy ball does is it just goes through all of them, and it doesn't stop, it doesn't bounce, it just. And so if you get that, you basically know that the level's over. But then there's other power-ups that just seem so lame, like the speed up or the speed down. And those appear all the time, which, again, is probably designed like that. But I don't know. Something about the power-ups to me, it seemed like it could use a little bit of a tweak. Because as I was playing through, I could tell some of the levels I was playing should be harder than they were, because I would get all these great power-ups.
Yeah.
And then there was levels where I'm like, this really shouldn't be that hard, but I'm getting no power-ups. And so it's just taking forever. And I don't know. Overall, again, it's a fun game. I'm not saying like this ruined the game for me or anything, but it's one of those things that I noticed of, I don't know, man, there's something not right about it. But
yeah, it's as you said, like, I could also very well work on because like where you hit it with the paddle, it'll shoot off at different angles and everything. But a lot of the time, yeah, it did feel like that to me. Like if I don't get a power up like this in this category, I'm not gonna hit above like a D rank on this level.
Yeah. For me, like it got to a point where if I didn't start getting those power-ups early on, I would just restart it. Because I'm like, I'm not going to sit here for the full 3 minutes and just watch, like I said, the ball bounce around and not hit the 2 remaining bricks.
Yeah. How often did you find yourself using like the I believe it was the L1, R1, the shoulder buttons, like
Oh, yeah.
power up. That got me out of that a couple times, but it never fixed the problem.
I didn't. I mean, I tried to use it as much as I can because I think you get bonus points for doing it, just for hitting them. But I never used it strategically. And basically, what the bumper buttons do is they send out like a wave of the two bumpers, vertical or horizontal or whatever. And if it hits the ball mid-flight, then it'll act like it was hitting the bumper. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah. I feel like we're still somewhat on power up, so I feel like this game does lend itself to like different sort of play styles. Like in the sense that like if you get this one power up, like some people, you're not terribly stoked on the speed up, speed down, but some people could very well just that's their whole game plan.
I don't
know. Mine was like similar to yours. It's like once I get the heavy ball, but that one probably universal.
Yeah,
'cause it's just so great.
Yeah. I mean, even the fireball, which is like the heavy ball where it destroys a brick that it hits immediately, but it doesn't pass through. Even that, I'm just like, I don't really care when I get it because it's still nice, of course, but the heavy ball is just so strong that it's like,
yeah,
it's the only power up that matters. But the speed down, I was going to say was it. There was a few times that actually came in handy.
Saved my ass a few times.
Because
like even if you don't get a speed up, sometimes you just get so much momentum I couldn't keep up.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of power ups. We could list them off for you, but that's not exciting. Some of them are like flies, which I think is similar to Galaga, right? Is it Galaga or is it?
The game labels them as like scarabs, and they kind of go towards your paddles and essentially attack them.
They make them smaller, and they slow movement if you get hit by them.
Yeah. Took me a while to figure out how to kill them. I didn't realize I could just hit the shoulder button.
Yeah, that's true. You can. I didn't even realize you could kill him either. I wasn't paying attention to that until I saw the trophy. There's a trophy for it, but basically, you can just select one of those. You go through the 40 stages, doing what we just said. You get those power ups. You break bricks. But to me, man, the bosses didn't seem that challenging. Again, I think they would have been challenging if there was no power-ups.
Yeah.
Like, the power-ups in the boss battles are just like, okay, well, this is a piece of cake. Because you get like a multi-ball going, and all you have to do is hit the boss. You don't have to break any of the bricks around the boss. You just have to hit the boss. And so
I learned that on about my third boss. I went around like breaking all the bricks first and then going after the boss actively.
Yeah, there's only 4 bosses, so you learned that pretty late.
Until like on the third one, I just accidentally ended up taking out the boss, and they still had half the bricks left. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
well, fuck.
Yeah,
I could have just sped through this.
I just immediately went for the boss, and I noticed that his health was chunking down. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I don't need to break the bricks, but so I think it would have been better without the power-ups during that point. But
when it came to the bosses, I don't think I ever failed on one of them. It was all the standard levels that really got under my skin.
Like the ones before the bosses. I have a specific note right here saying the quote-unquote 9 levels. So the 9, the 19, the 29, the 39 levels. Those are all fucking pieces of shit, man.
I don't know if I had trouble on like a 29 or a 27, but one of them really, I had to walk away for a bit.
God, man. They were harder than the bosses. There's a heart one, I think, before the final boss.
Oh, I know which one you're speaking of.
There's bricks in the shape of a heart, and all the outside ones are like level 6 or whatever, so you're just pounding and pounding and pounding, and you don't get power-ups until you break bricks. And it's like, fuck! Come on, man. And you're just sitting there watching it go back and forth, but
a lot of the boss fights to me, they didn't feel quite unique. I mean, I get it's a brick breaker, but it all kind of revolved around, I think,
this like Aztec looking god idol.
Yeah, it's like an Aztec kind of idol design, and it every once in a while will like pull up these basically look like arms, and they'll just shoot at you. Yeah. And that happens for about 3 of the bosses. And then on the final one, I believe it shoots 4 at a time, but that's like the biggest difference to me.
Yeah, I don't really. They all seem very generic, and again, like you're saying, it's a brick breaker, and so I think it might have been. I think it's more of like a mental checkpoint in some ways. These bosses, where it's like, all right, well, you're a quarter of the way through the game, you're halfway through the game. Like, I feel like that's more of what they represent than an actual difficulty.
So I'm saying, and like, I don't expect them to be wholly unique, but a couple other gimmicks would have been good for me.
Yeah.
And I get this is probably a lower budget game, I'd assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exact budget, but
I don't either, and I don't expect them to really release those numbers. But,
nor do I.
but again, it seems like we're probably shitting on it more than we are, but it is a fun game. But I have a tendency to nitpick certain things.
Yeah,
and so
that's all I really have to say about the bosses. Like, I don't mind the design, everything. I kind of dig it. Just wish they had like a couple more gimmicks per boss.
Yeah,
or even if a couple of them are similar. I don't know.
Yeah, the hardest part of the game is honestly physics, frankly, and I don't think the bosses necessarily need to be hard, but I would have liked them to be harder. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you get screwed over because, at least for me, when you're controlling 4 paddles, basically you have your 2 analog sticks. You can push up and down for the side bumpers, and then you do left and right for the bottom 2 bumpers.
Yeah. Found out you could also use the face buttons.
And it fucks it up. This is one of the things I was going to say, is that X is how you shoot the ball, but it's also how you push down on the right side of the bumper, the right bumper. And I don't know. I guess I have a tendency to push X when I don't mean to, and so I would leave the right bumper in a gap to cover that gap. Mm-hmm. And I'd be focusing on the left side of the screen where the ball is, and then the ball would go back onto the other side, and then I wouldn't realize that I had been pushing X or something, and it's just a wide open hole now because the bumper went down. So I wish I could toggle that off, the face buttons, because I was only using the analog sticks, which are imprecise, by the way, but that might have been the reason that I couldn't hit the remaining 2 blocks in the middle, is because I'd be like, as soon as I'd go right, it would shoot to the right. It wouldn't do like fine movements.
I found out you could be slightly more precise and move it like smaller little measurements if you use the directional buttons, but I never found that to be useful because I felt like they went slower when you use like trying to actually play that way. I only ever used it when I needed to precisely launch the ball.
I didn't know that. Yeah, see, I literally had 2 inputs this entire game. That was the analog stick and the X button. But
while we're talking about all the paddles, I knew it had to be a little cheeky because when they first introduced all 4 paddles, I believe the line right before it is like, this is going to make everything so much easier. And as soon as I saw the 4 paddles, I was like, fuck this.
God, man.
I didn't even have to play it. I just knew.
Yeah, it's the game is like super easy for the most part up until level 30 when the 4 bumpers are introduced. And then my mind, it's like my mind is not wired to have controlling 4 things with two thumbs kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I can't describe it well, but the ball would be like shooting across the bottom of the screen, and I'd be pushing up to try and like have the bottom bumper come up and hit it like a pinball thing.
Pinball. That's what I'm looking for.
But it doesn't do that, and so I had to break that for the longest time. So the last 10 levels were really difficult for me because of that.
Oftentimes, I found myself moving each, like the left and right, in unison.
Yeah,
just in like a panic motion. That really bit me in the ass a few times.
Yeah. So the difficulty spike is severe at level 30, but it's not ridiculous.
It's just something you have to really get used to after some trial and error.
Right, and it breathes a fresh feeling into the game too.
Yeah, we discussed that in the beginning. Like, just having them introduce that really like revitalizes it after 30 levels or so.
Yeah, exactly. So after you beat the 40 levels, though, there's a new game plus, and if there's one thing that I can say, it's that New Game Plus was not needed in this game the way that it is.
I was curious about New Game Plus. I had to ask Logan about it, as I had yet to touch it. I was going back and S-ranking all the original levels.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, because there's like nothing to carry over in the traditional New Game Plus sense. So
right.
Tell us about it.
Basically, from what I can gather, is that you get 1 extra heart. So rather than having 3 lives, you have 4. The time is increased slightly, and then all the bricks basically are bumped up to 5 or 6, 4, 5, or 6. And so it's just it doesn't become more fun. New Game Plus, it becomes more of a time sink, which I don't ever like in a game where it's just like a lot of the times I play shooters a lot of the time, and a common criticism of those is that bosses become bullet sponges, you'll hear. And that's kind of how I feel with this, is that these bricks are just ball sponges. And that sounds real dirty. But, but it's just, fuck. At a certain point, I'm just like, the time's running out, and when the time runs out, there's like these big ships that come in and like blow everything up, and you lose points. And at a certain point, I'm just like, I just need enough points so that when those ships come in, I'm not gonna fail.
Yeah.
So I would get like an E on every single one of these because I'm just sitting there trying to break the same goddamn brick forever.
And there's no like extra story bits or anything behind it. It's all structured similarly.
There's no reason to do New Game Plus other than for the trophy.
So you feel like it could have been essentially like a difficulty, like normal or hard or something like that.
Speed up the ball. Like that to me is more fun than just being like, all right, well, I'm going to bang on this brick for 6 fucking minutes and then still not have enough time to break the rest of the bricks. It's just not a good mode, I don't think. And this above all else is where I'm most critical about the game, as I feel like New Game Plus really needs a rework, and I'm not sure exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it.
Fair.
So.
But then again, it's still an option at that point. I mean, I guess there's a trophy tied to it, as you said.
So it depends on how you want. I mean, it's not like it wasn't hard. Like I said, it was just a time sink.
Yeah.
And I get that a lot of trophies are time sinks when you want to get a platinum. But I don't know. It's the wrong kind of time sink, if that makes sense. It's not like collecting collectibles.
Yeah.
It's just mind numbing kind of annoyances.
Well, while we're talking about other game modes, there's multiple other game modes within it. There's the New Game Plus. There is a traditional like Pong mode, essentially, where you're against a boss, but you just kind of have to get it past them.
And that's one of my favorites.
Goals. Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing that a few times. There's also a boss rush.
Mm-hmm. And those aren't the same bosses as the story modes, I don't think. I think there's not a lot of variety. They still do like the arm thing, but I don't think that they're the same. I might be wrong.
I only played about 1 round of it, but I could see myself returning to it just to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
That's the thing overall about this game. I could see myself leaving it on the console and just playing it when I need something simple to jump into and jump out of.
Exactly. And again, it's all about the gameplay, and with the multiple modes. The thing I love about the multiple modes is that for the trophies that you're missing, you can go back and you can play one of these modes and get it done really easily.
Yeah.
Like I was missing 1 trophy for picking up 50 gold coins, and so I just went to the catcher mode, which is basically you just have your 2 guys at the your 2 bumpers at the bottom, and you're trying to catch gold coins and avoid scarabs. And so I just sat there and I was also missing a trophy where you're supposed to miss like 500 collectibles or whatever.
So you just kept dodging them.
I just kept dodging them except for the gold ones.
Okay.
And it was really, it only took a few minutes. And again, this game doesn't require a lot of your time, and so it might be unfair of me to be like, New Game Plus takes way too much fucking time. But I don't know. I mean, I think I platinumed it in maybe 10 hours. It's not a long game by any stretch of the imagination, but
While we're speaking of the trophies, that's one thing I especially enjoy about this being, like, of Colin being such a big part in the development, because he's an avid trophy hunter. So I knew I had faith in him making a pretty solid, like, semi-challenging but still fun trophy list.
Yeah,
and I'm working my way through it. You platinumed it.
Yeah, it's a good trophy list if you're into that kind of thing, for sure. There's no doubt about it. And the game design goes really well with it, like I was saying. So, the Lillymo and Colin had a two minds of one. I don't know. There's like a saying. What is it? I don't know. Two minds into one. The marriage of the minds. They were melding.
Okay, I enjoy the marriage of the minds. I feel like that fits particularly well.
You know, I saved it. I was freaking out. I was. There's a saying. I know. I don't know where it is, but.
On a quick little hill turn right here, I wanted to discuss the soundtrack just a little bit. It's a very modest soundtrack, not a lot of diversity. I think
there's only 3.
I was going to say, I think you could count it, the number of tracks on one hand. I believe I'm sitting on 3, could be more, but they felt particularly retro, which is what the game was going for.
And they're varied enough that I was never like, oh, this fucking song again.
Yeah, and I found myself kind of just humming, like, especially what I believe is just the main tune to the game, just kind of in my...
Yeah.
Took the dogs for a walk and like... I was jamming out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the soundtrack quite a bit. Yeah, very modest, but felt like it was something worth mentioning.
Yeah, it is. I'm... As I always say, I think audio and music are very important, and a lot of the times underrated in a video game,
especially in a game like this.
Yeah,
where it's just, that's really it can't be understated how big it plays, because other than that, I would have ducked out a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I wanted to put on my headphones when I was playing and not just listen to, Spotify or something while I'm playing such a simple game is something to mention, I suppose. But I don't know. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. There is a thank you splash screen when you open up the game, which I think is really good. Anytime you have a developer say, "Hey, thank you for spending your money on this game, we really appreciate it." So
yeah, I don't remember the exact quote, but yeah, it's like, you work hard for your money, so thank you for buying our game and playing it. Something simple like that. Yeah,
it's always a nice touch, and immediately at that point, in my mind at least, you have you're already, I'm already a big fan of the game.
Yeah,
we start off on a high note.
When you show off like that sort of genuine appreciation, like, it's such a small thing, but when I first bought The Witcher 3 years ago, when you open up the case, there's just like I don't want to say custom because it's in every single one of them, but it's just like a big paragraph thank you note.
Yeah.
And it still sticks with me to this day. I just remember opening that up. So seeing it, especially on just like a splash screen.
Yeah. Every time you boot it up, and that's a better place for it to be.
Real quick, I did want to touch on a couple things. I feel like this game had a little bit of like co-op potential. I know it's like a little bit of extra development.
That's what I thought the Pong mode would be, is a multiplayer, but it's not.
I feel like that's the place where it would most easily fit. And then it would probably be a little more getting used to, but I felt like even going through like the campaign, like especially when you have the 4 paddles, if you could split that up between 2 like controllers and like control left, right, or horizontal, vertical.
Or even like an Overcooked thing, where you could share the one controller.
Or even that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think that game would do well. I don't know if they're planning on doing post-production on it, but I don't even know if that's the right term, but
it's like post-launch content.
Yeah, I don't know if they're... I would imagine not, but maybe something to...
It could be, yeah. And then kind of riffing on that, like, would I like to see them make another game in this style, like maybe adding in the multiplayer or anything, or would I rather them go off in like a completely different direction to a different genre of game? Or
I think I would. They have, Colin at least has expressed a desire to develop more games, and I think it'd be cool to see other versions of games, whether it be like an RPG, like a small little like Pokemon style RPG,
Yeah.
or I don't know what else. I would say like a shooter maybe, but I think that probably is out of the question for now. Those aren't necessarily easy to make.
What is it called? A Contra style game.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that one fits very well with multiplayer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely believe that he wants to get into other games. So I sit with you. Like, I wouldn't mind them just going off, branching out as much as they'd like to, making whatever they want, really.
Yeah.
And then lastly, my final note is basically just a question. Should you play this as a Sacred Symbols fan, or even if you've never even listened before, not familiar with the show? I feel like you get more out of it if you are, definitely. But I feel like it's a fun game no matter who you are.
Yeah, I mean, for the price point especially, I feel like it's worth it. I mean, like I said, I got the Platinum in 10 hours. It's a $10 game. Just, I always do the hours spent compared to dollars given kind of thing. And so $1 an hour is really quite a good deal. And beyond that, it does have quite a bit of replayability, whether you just want to jump into boss mode or random mode or catcher mode or whatever, and just sit down for a couple minutes and rewind at the end of the day. So I definitely think it's worth the purchase, even if you aren't a Sacred Symbols fan. But I mean, for God's sake, if you are, you might as well just do it.
Yeah, especially just to support them and this venture. Like,
yeah,
I guarantee most of the people listening to the show are already going for it. So
yeah, there were physical editions of the game. I think by the time this is releasing, you won't actually.
Yeah, they were very limited, I believe.
Yeah. So only the real homies got those.
Yeah,
as we say.
We should disclose this. We did get the review code. Yeah, we mentioned that, but we also are purchasing this on our own. So
yeah,
we could say what we like about it. We're not influenced in any way.
Right. And we didn't think we were going to get a review code, but we did. And so we really appreciate that again. And I feel like it's only fair for us to actually give you guys, one of you listeners, a code as well. And so, well, we can't really give you a code because Sony sucks at that kind of thing with the marketplace. So what I can do is I can send you $10 on PlayStation, or I can send you a PlayStation gift card or something. I can Venmo you $10,
Yeah,
and you can go buy it yourself, kind of thing.
we'd love to buy the game for you. Yeah.
Exactly. And
How do you get this game from us?
well, we were discussing that before, and I think what we've come down on is the first person to send me a screenshot of them supporting either our Patreon or the Colin's Last Stand Patreon.
And I know, real quick, it's a giveaway from us, and we're asking you to give money, but this is any tier level. Like, we each have $1 tier levels, even if it's just for this month.
Yeah.
Just show a little love, and we'll hopefully win the game.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe even, I will say this. How about this?
Oh.
I'm calling an audible right here, right now. The first 3 people to do that will do it. Maybe then it's more enticing. So if you're one of the first 3 people to do it, just support at a $1 level on either Colin's Last Stand or the Vice of Life Patreon. You will get a $10 via Venmo, probably.
Yeah, and then
to buy the game.
like we said in the beginning, cross-buy title. You get it PS4, PS Vita.
Exactly. And this is a good Vita game if you're living in a place.
This is a perfect take it on a plane game.
Or on a train or a car. Planes, trains, and cars. Or what are locomotives? I don't know. That's the same thing as I don't even know. That's a train, isn't it? Locomotive?
Locomotive, yeah.
Anyways. All right, well, that's been our review of Twin Breaker, unless you have something else to say, Eloy.
No, I think it's definitely worth checking out, and then, just go check out our Patreons for a chance to win it.
Yep. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and be sure to pick up Twin Breaker. Again, it is for PS4 and PS Vita for $10, And
Also, check out their show.
check out their show, Sacred Symbols. It's very good, very informative if you're into the PlayStation ecosystem. And with PlayStation 5 coming right around the corner, that is probably where you're going to want to listen for some of the most in-depth discussion and analysis of the upcoming excitement. So without further delay, I suppose, we'll end the episode. Goodbye, guys. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Vice of Life. Feel free to get in touch with us on Instagram and Twitter at Vice of Life Pod. Our new YouTube channel at Vice of Life. Patreon, you can check us out, and it's just Vice of Life on there. Email us at viceoflifepodcast@gmail.com, and leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen. And just make sure to subscribe to the show for more.